But I will kick things off with the Lord of the Rings, the very first one, the Fellowship of the Ring. I want to discuss Sean Bean, who plays Boromir.
Oh, that's so cool.
His demise, which I thought was just a really epic moment in the first film, and really sets up for the second film. The fact that he wants... no, Lloyd is not a Lord of the Rings fan, but you have seen this one, haven't you, Lloyd?
I actually liked... I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan, but out of all the Lord of the Rings, this one I found I liked the most. And yeah, that death was one of the coolest deaths. It's the one where he's blowing on the trumpet and they've hit him with like 6 arrows and he still keeps fighting. Is that the one?
And he gradually sort of goes down and then gets back up, keeps fighting, keeps protecting the hobbits, who 2 scenes beforehand or something, he was trying to get the ring off Frodo, and you could see in his eyes that he wanted it for himself. And
that was an excellent death.
And there's the army of orcs charging through the forest, which I think the forest is an amazing sequence in itself. And it's really brings to a head this Boromir as he's sort of dying, continuing to fight and being a part of the Fellowship, which he was in danger of falling out of. And Aragorn comes in. He fights let's call him the leader orc. He's got a white handprint on his head and basically seems unkillable. He's the guy that shoots all the arrows into Boromir. And in this scene, basically, the fight between Viggo Mortensen, who plays Aragorn, and this orc, he eventually slices off his head. And when that happens, in the theatre that I'm watching it in, everybody cheers.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
There's an awesome cheer comes out, and I just thought it really hit me that moment, especially probably amplified by the cheer, how much it sort of stayed with me. But then Boromir has time to sort of talk to Aragorn and stuff and die with a lot more dignity than if he'd just been shot in the head with an arrow rather. So it just made it really epic.
You bring up a great actor, Sean Bean, and it's funny, it's gone viral all over YouTube, but his death reel, and
yes.
it just is a montage of all his deaths. If you haven't seen it, just Google Sean Bean death reel, and all his deaths are there. It's fantastic, and it's funny, there's an interview with Sean Bean, and they go, "Oh, do you realize you've got this death reel video that's gone viral on YouTube?" And he's like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's got 1 million hits." He goes, "Yeah, I guess I've died in a lot of movies." And they're like, the guy goes, "Do you have a favorite death?" And he goes, I guess Boromir. Yeah, Boromir was a good death."
There you go. It's actually his favorite as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good choice. I remember seeing that in the cinema, and I really like Sean Bean. I think he's got a great face. I think he's a great actor, and he's good in those roles as hardy, honourable men. Whether they be villains, they still have a lot of code. I thought he played a great role in GoldenEye.
Yes.
As 006. That was another funny death. He's always been a phenomenal actor, and seeing him in Lord of the Rings, the first one, although I'm not a fan of Lord of the Rings, that was one of the scenes I was like, wow, and one of the characters I was like, that was really cool, because he wasn't perfect as Aragorn, who's just this...
Boromir.
Yeah, Boromir is this really, not tragic, but not a really fault of a character.
Flawed.
He's got a lot of faults with him. He's got greed and everything, but at the same time, in the end, he goes down by his shield, so it was a fantastic death.
And his choice to keep fighting and protecting the 2 hobbits is really interesting. And you can see it, there's many sort of slow motion epic moments within the whole fight where you can see it in his eyes and the way he sort of chooses to continue to fight. It's really well done.
Yeah. Good choice.
I was just going to say, I remember the GoldenEye video game on Nintendo 64, with 006 and stuff. It's very vividly, the faces were really good in those games.
Yeah.
And you could sort of tell it was Sean Bean, and that was really good. But the Lord of the Rings game on PS2, I think it is, it also does this whole forest sequence really well, and it feels like you're fighting orcs forever. It seems like they just keep coming, and it's a really full-on sequence. It's something that's great. It feels interactive as well when you can play it.
Oh, that's cool.
Within a game. Did you want to mention your childhood films?
Oh, yeah. This is interesting. When I was selecting these, I automatically thought of Optimus Prime's death, and I know you said on last week's podcast that you've seen Transformers a lot of times.
The animated film, yeah.
Yeah, and what was the impact of Optimus Prime's death? Because that was like, if you look at a timeline of a child's life, that'd be one of the most the biggest impact, one of the great impacts of their youth was Optimus Prime dying. I know that sounds corny, but he was so loved by children everywhere, and just the fact that a movie would just kill him off in a very brutal fashion was remarkable.
Well, I think you're talking about probably boys and not girls as much.
Yeah.
Probably couldn't care less about Optimus Prime. Well, do you first, for viewers, or listeners rather, want to describe the way he dies in the film?
Yeah, well,
you don't
it's
have to
got
sing
one of the
song.
coolest entrances of Optimus Prime, and he enters the whole movie to the song, into the initial battle, You Got the Touch. So every kid who hears that song, You Got the Touch, their eyes go dreamy, they think back of their youth, and they think of Optimus Prime, and he really turns the tide of the battle, because the Autobots are losing in the whole battle, and then... Sorry,
I just want to interrupt. Or else they think of Boogie Nights. Mark Wahlberg sings that song.
I completely forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, carry on. He turns the tide.
He turns the tide of the battle, and he comes to Megatron, and it's Megatron and him face to face. And Megatron decides not to shoot him with his gun, and he says, I'll destroy you with my own hands. I can't believe I'm forgetting the line. I've seen that movie.
I'll rip out your optics.
Yeah, I'll rip out your optics. Yeah. And he fights Megatron.
I'll crush you with my bare hands, I think he says.
Yeah, and Megatron beats him up really badly. Like, Optimus Prime gives as good as he gets. Like, it's really, a really brutal battle where Megatron hits him in the side of his rib. I think it's the right-hand side, and everyone, I read on forums, everyone goes, oh, that must be his weakness, because one big fault of the movie, Ultra Magnus gets shot to pieces, like literally blown to pieces later in the film, and they put him all back together in the land of the Junkions, and Optimus Prime just gets beaten down heavily by Megatron, and he ends up getting shot by Megatron. Megatron manages to get to a gun and shoot him several times, and just before Optimus dies, he gives an uppercut, sending Megatron down, and Megatron's almost dead as well. And eventually we find out in the later scene the wounds are so much Optimus just dies, and he passes on his matrix of leadership.
Isn't it interesting that we refer to robots dying, but really they just shut down, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. They just seem to have a soul, even though they're just meant to be commercials so we could buy toys. And he passes on his matrix of leadership, and he just dies. And if you watch how the scene goes on, it's actually very well done. It's just music going, and you see the heart monitor. Just Optimus Prime's last beats of life before he turns black, and they go almost black and white just on Optimus Prime, and he turns, and the kid cries, and everyone looks down, and it cuts to this long shot. It's really, really good. It's a really well done scene, and as a kid you're watching this, and Optimus Prime is a huge hero to kids at the time, and they're just mercilessly killing Transformers in that movie in the battle scenes, but specifically Optimus Prime. And what it was the transition of a new line of toys. So the writers were writing in not knowing they were causing the most traumatic experience for children.
For me, watching that film, my favorite character was Hot Rod. I had the Hot Rod toy, and obviously,
really, I hated Hot Rod.
And he becomes Rodimus Prime at the end. He leads and becomes, he steps up.
Yeah.
And the whole film is basically about him and Cup.
It was like the Luke Skywalker type thing, like he had to become.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so I really enjoyed the growth of his character within that cartoon film.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you called it a heart monitor, but again, he doesn't have a heart.
His lifeline monitor. Yeah,
I know what you mean. It is very lifelike when you're a kid.
And the other most horrific, I won't say horrific, I'll say traumatic death sequence was the death of Bigfoot's mum in Land Before Time. I'm not sure if it's the mother or the grandmother, but she dies defending him against
Littlefoot's mum?
Littlefoot's, right? Okay, sorry. Bigfoot, I thought it was Bigfoot. It must be Littlefoot, you're right.
Yeah, I think he's called Littlefoot, yeah.
Littlefoot's mum dies defending the child against a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the wounds are so great she's just dying there. And the mum tells him that don't worry, everything will be okay. You just got to find the what was it they're looking for? The valley or something?
Yeah, I can't remember what the valley is called. I'm sorry.
Watch it. I watched it again on YouTube. Somebody's uploaded that, and it is so sad. And that his mum dies and he's left alone in this really harsh world where the asteroids have just hit or something has happened, and all the dinosaurs have to make this long journey to find food. And it's interesting, at the end of that film, when they find the valley and all their families there, I interpret it as them dying. They've entered in paradise now, and this is the end. Yeah, and well, that was shattered when they came out with Land Before Time 2 and 3.
And 4 and 5 and 6.
So the death of Bigfoot's mother and
Littlefoot's
mother was so sad to me. And then to get to the end of that film where they get to a valley, and then I'm interpreting it as paradise, where this is the end. We've all died and we're now in heaven with all the other creatures, was so traumatizing. You've seen Land Before Time?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Lloyd, now I haven't seen Land Before Time since I was a kid. It's not one of those films which I've revisited over the years. But I suspect it'll be the kind of film that, now that I have a daughter, I will throw in eventually and review once more.
I'm a sucker with those kids' films. Like, I can still cry in them.
Yeah, I think we've all got our favourites, really. Like I mentioned last week, a film, Flight of Dragons, and I'm still waiting to hear if anybody has heard of that film, I guess. You can hit me up on Twitter or something and just, say you've seen it, because I feel like it's the kind of film that was only on TV and that I feel like no one ever knew about it, Just like...
sort of went under the radar.
Didn't feel like, mainstream film. I don't know.
You should look that up if it's a cult favourite.
Yeah, well, I have a copy of it, so, I mean, somebody out there sold it to me, but, I don't know. I'm going to jump in with the next one, Lloyd. The film is Pulp Fiction. So,
which death out of the
memorable,
many
memorable ones, but the one that sticks with me, oh man, I just shot Marvin in the face.
That's got to be one of the funniest scenes. I know it's a sadistic thing to say, but
oh yeah, this is a memorable death for all the wrong reasons, I guess. It's like this moment in the film which leads them to the introduction of Quentin Tarantino's character, and what I love about it is really how it comes out of nowhere and continues to progress the story forward. The fact that they have to then get cleaned up, that they have to pick bits of brain out of the back seat, it just leads to so much comedy and intrigue about the film, And Marvin was such a small character up to that point, sort of thing. It just...
Like John Travolta goes, I think I shot Marvin in the face.
Yes, exactly. And how casual he is about that as well. How it's oh, whoops, kind of thing, it's... And it comes, as I said, out of nowhere. And the back window of the car, how it just fills with blood, has always stuck with me, since I first saw that film. Yeah, that one was really good.
No, that's a good choice.
You had Aliens.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting with this film, and I'm going with the death of Hudson in Aliens, because, almost everyone dies in the movie Aliens. And this is the sequel, directed by James Cameron, not the... Ridley Scott film. And there's a character, Hudson, played by Bill Paxton, who's afraid in the whole film. He goes, "It's game over, man, it's game over." He's famous for that line. And throughout the whole bit, like, he's one of the survivors, he's really negative about a lot of the situations because he's so scared. Like, he doesn't want to volunteer for things and so forth. But he's actually a very good soldier. And towards the end, when they're making their last stand, they're like fending them off while they open up other doors trying to escape. He just gets this moment of insane courage and just starts blowing away aliens left and right. And he goes, you want some? You want some of this? And it's just great because you're like, yeah, as a viewer, you're getting right in there. And then an alien takes him down from underneath and starts pulling him down, like seemingly from nowhere. And he doesn't give up. He actually grabs his gun, points it down, and he says, F you, and he keeps firing down. And Hicks, who's the sergeant, played by Michael Biehn, runs over and grabs Hudson by the hands, and Hudson's hands is slipping because he keeps dragging away, and Hicks is trying with all his might, and then you see the hand of the alien reach up and grab Hudson's face and pull him down. So it's a very terrifying scene, but at the same time, it's a great death, sort of like Boromir's death in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, because he goes down fighting and he has that insane courage. And I can't tell you in how many video games I've played in Call of Duty or Resident Evil where you have those survival type war games, or even in Laser Zone or paintball games, where you always get one guy who just goes out there and goes on that suicidal rampage and just trying to take out as many guys. And I want to say it's purely inspired by Hudson, which it isn't. I'm sure there's other movies that have done it, but you know, I personally have done it. I just run out there in a video game going, you want some, you know, and I just try to shoot down as many people before I go down in a hail of bullets.
Yes, it's like a lot of war films, I'm sure.
Yes, you're absolutely right. A lot of war films would have done it.
There's that scene in Con Air where Nicolas Cage just kind of walks through like a massive fight scene in slow motion, and he's able to just fight people on the way, sort of thing.
Yeah. He gets shot in the arm, and he just
does.
ignores it. Yeah,
Keeps
that's cool.
going. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to top the alien scene where the alien comes out of the chest. You know, it's
out of the initial the bodies that they find.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
But anyway, we will move on. The next film I've got, and Lloyd and I came to these choices independently. The next one I've got is American History X. Now, Edward Norton is in this film, so is Ethan Suplee. It's all about Nazi beliefs, and it's got the kid from Terminator 2 as well, the one who plays John Connor. His name escapes me at the moment. Do you know it, Lloyd?
Oh, I've forgotten.
I can't remember. But, you know, the kid who's all like teaching Arnold Schwarzenegger lingo in the second one.
Yep.
One who plays John Connor. And he is the like little brother of Edward Norton. Edward Norton, for me, is like a really great actor. I don't know if you agree, Lloyd, but...
I think he's a bit overrated, but he's a very intelligent guy.
Well, at this time, you've got Fight Club. You've got Primal Fear, which I don't know if you've seen, the movie with Richard Gere, where he's playing, you know, two different facets of one personality kind of thing. He's like a multiple personality disorder kind of thing going on. I won't say any more about Primal Fear, because in case people want to see it.
And he was also in the score with Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro.
Yep. But American History X, to stay on point, there's this ultra-violent death scene which results in him going to prison, where he has another character put his teeth on the curb. He says, "Bite the curb," I'm pretty sure. And then he steps on the back of the guy's head, killing him against the curb kind of thing. And it's just this intense moment that is followed by... It's in black and white. It's a slow motion shot, and the background is black, and the white of Edward Norton's character just illuminated by what I guess must be the headlights of the police car.
Yep.
And the look on his face is just very memorable, and the hatred that his character is feeling at the time.
You don't actually see anything, do they? Cut away?
No, they cut away.
And then he stomps?
Often those kinds of moments are made worse because in your mind you build it up and you make it as horrible as... We talked about this on the Looper podcast. You know, I'm not going to mention what it was about, but if you've seen Looper and you've listened to that podcast, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sure. How we build up in our mind how horrible a death can be when it's off screen. You know, it's the same thing from Reservoir Dogs, where there's that ear scene where
you don't actually see it. Yeah, it's
exactly
one of the most horrifying or talked about scenes, but you don't actually see anything.
That's right, and which helps the rating of a film, you know, if you did see these kind of horrible things like in movies like Hostel, you know, where it openly shows torture and, you know, horrible stuff, then it really bumps up the rating of the film and less people wind up seeing it. But yeah, we imagine a horrible moment when he stomps these teeth on the curb. So American History X for me was a really good one when I thought of this. But the next one we'll talk about... Lloyd, I'll introduce it and I'll let you take over because we both came up with Terminator 2 and the same death from Terminator 2. So set it up for us, Lloyd.
Oh my gosh, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, what's his code? The T-1000
He's the T-800, isn't he?
Metal, and he's
T-800, I think.
T-800? Yes, T-800? Yeah,
think
throughout
so.
the whole film, he's like the father of John Connor, and he's protecting him, and you're rooting for him for the whole film because he seems so underpowered compared to the T-1000. The T-1000 is like, a super phenomenal, one of the best villain characters ever put to film. Like, the special effects are phenomenal.
Liquid metal, yeah.
His power in the first Terminator, he seems so underpowered, like he's always struggling, and he's always running from liquid metal, and he's like, throughout the whole film you form this bond with this kid and this mechanical Terminator, I want to say, and there's a great speech that the mother delivers when she goes, out of all the would-be fathers who ever came, the Terminator was the best one because he would never strike John, he would never get angry, he'd never get drunk, he'd always stand by him. I think that's a really touching moment in the film. And at the very end he realizes there's so many layers going on at that point, but he's managed to destroy liquid metal, which was a cool death in itself. Liquid metal falls into the lava and disintegrates. That was a great death, and it's a very bizarre metamorphosis he takes into everyone he's turned into, and eventually dissolves into lava. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger, or the Terminator, says, I have to die as well because I have to terminate as well because I have a chip inside me, and so in order for the future,
it's the technology.
the technology has to be destroyed. And there's all these layers there because she says something in the monologue after he dies about if a Terminator can understand the price of...
I've got it here if you like.
Okay, yeah, sure.
It's because if a machine, a Terminator, can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too.
It's so... Yeah, and exactly. If you watch that scene again and he says something to him, he goes, now I know why you do this, referring to crying. Now I know why you cry. There's so many humanic... I don't know, it's like Pinocchio, it's like... I think, therefore I am. I dream of electric sheep, like with Blade Runner. There's so many things going on there. But the most touching moment of all was like a father leaving a son. You really felt that moment, and he goes off to his death and he gives a thumbs up at the end. It is so sad and so well done. The whole movie's brilliant, but that moment was just so touching. I didn't cry at the end of that. It was sort of like an accepting thing. Yeah, he definitely has to die, but you really... the loss of his presence, you really felt like when he goes in and he gives the last thumbs up, it's sort of sad, it's sort of happy, it's like a happy death, but it's a weird feeling to describe. It's one of the great movies of all time, I think,
and definitely memorable because obviously we both picked this to go into this list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the fact that he can't self-terminate as well, the fact that they have to lower him into the lava and he's accepting of it. And it's weird that he can even do the thumbs up because, the lava would have kind of destroyed him as he was going into it.
That's a really good point because it goes into his point of view and you see all the systems shutting down. Yeah, shutting down. Oh, my God.
And as well, this almost killed, I think, the Terminator franchise because it's sort of like there is no more technology. It's all, everything's dissolved, sort of thing.
What do you mean it did? There is no Terminator sequels.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that Terminator 3, quick spoilers for Terminator 3 now, the way that it ends, you've seen it, Lloyd?
I don't know what you're talking about. There is no such thing as a Terminator 3.
Maybe we should just leave it there. Edward Furlong was the actor who played John Connor.
Oh, yes, Edward Furlong.
Edward Furlong. He was also
you'll never get Edward. You'll only remember Furlong.
Yeah, he's also the one from American History X, whose name I couldn't remember. I'll jump into the next one. This is a great topic, I think. I'm enjoying it a lot. We should do more of these one-off specials.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
American Beauty is the film.
Oh, good choice. Sam Mendes, yeah.
Yeah, the death of Kevin Spacey, who won an Oscar for this performance. The fact that the whole film, at the beginning, he mentions, in less than a year I'll be dead. You're counting down to this death. It's what you're expecting to happen the entire time. But the way the film is, I don't know if this was the same for you, but you forget about that, and you don't necessarily remember the death until, everybody's getting guns and everyone's sort of around him at the end.
It's a tricky strategy because you already throw down the ending at the beginning, and you have to be so good for the audience to sort of forget that. Sunset Boulevard was one of the most memorable ones where he introduces himself dead in a pool, like he's
Yes.
like just in the pool dead, and the whole voiceover is him, and you think, well, how can he do a voiceover? He's dead, sort of thing. And yeah, in this one, exact same case. Like he introduces, "Oh, I'm actually dead," and you're going to watch how
the events leading up to it. Sure,
it's amazing how it's still a surprise. Like he dies, like it's also whoa, you know.
Yes, and very well done as well, because at the time when it happens, you don't see who pulls the trigger. Of course, he's in the house and he doesn't sleep with Mina Suvari, which you think is going to happen in the lead up. Because he's lusting after her and working out and so forth. But he returns her to innocence in a way that's very fatherly, and, you know, he starts acting his age right at the end. And then this gun kind of comes into frame just at the back of his head. The camera pans to the left to the wall, and you see this blast of blood just hit the wall as if he's been shot in the head. Off screen, again, another memorable off-screen death. But Alan Ball, who created 6 Feet Under, as well as True Blood. Well, he didn't create True Blood, but he created the TV series of True Blood.
Sure.
You know, it's this delicate handling of characters that I think was really well done. And it sticks with you, that death, as well, because you see his head on the counter afterwards. You know, obviously blood coming from the head, and the weird boy who films, I can't remember his character's name, who films the plastic bag, and it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, looks at Kevin Spacey and smiles, and it's really memorable because there's sort of half a smile on Kevin Spacey's head, face rather, because as he's lying there, he's just looked at a photo of his family. He was smiling just as he died. The thing that went through his head was, you know, his family, and I just thought it was really interesting.
It's so effective as well, the music and how much pacing there was in that film. It's so delicately handled, how much time they give each other's for the looks.
Yeah.
It's not overdone, it's not underdone, it's just perfectly right. And just something about the pacing of that movie is so enchanting.
Lloyd, your next one is yours. The film is Casino.
Casino, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring, you know, his typical troops, well, his best troops.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
All the way back from Raging Bull days, sorry.
I was like, Leonardo DiCaprio?
Oh, geez, he's got so many new teams, doesn't he? So many teams. Well, he came off Goodfellas, and they pretty much teamed up again to do another sort of gangster film, and they're very similar films, Goodfellas and Casino. Joe Pesci plays this, who's a phenomenal actor, by the way, plays this absolutely tyrannical mobster killing people left and right, and he comes to the most horrific death. And this brings up that voiceover technique that you talked about in American Beauty. The whole film, it has his voiceover, and it cuts off the moment this sequence happens, where the gangsters, he thinks he's having a meeting, and they bring him to a sugarcane area, and they all take out baseball bats, and they turn on Joe Pesci, and he quickly finds out that the higher up mobs want him eliminated, so they kill him in the most primeval sort of manner with simply baseball bats, and they beat him down. And what's worse about it, I think, was when Joe Pesci has to watch his brother die, and his brother, I think it's just so horrific, like the bones are coming out of the cheek and he's still swearing, like half mumbling, and you see the body twitching and stuff like that. And then finally they beat up Joe Pesci, and then they throw him in the pit, and then they throw dirt on the face, and you see that he's still alive, like he's still conscious. It's so brutal. And Martin Scorsese even said, he goes, "That's all I ever had to say about violence. There's nothing more I can do. Like, that's it. It's just guys getting beat up by baseball bats." And when he did Gangs of New York years later, you'd think would have much more violent scenes than that. It's actually all kind of off screen, all the actual flesh and the impact of flesh on weapons. It's all just off screen. And Casino really had an impact on me, especially I think mainly because his brother, he had to watch his brother go down first. It's so terrifying. It's one of the most ugliest deaths I've ever seen. I don't know if you've seen Casino.
Yeah, I did. Initially, that's another one of the films that opens with a death. It's a car bomb explosion.
Yes, yeah.
And, so you're intrigued by this possibility of who was in the car and so forth throughout the film. Yeah, but no, it's a good one. The next one I thought of pretty early on was another classic, 1983, Scarface,
Oh, good choice. Brian De Palma, written by Oliver Stone.
who I know you appreciate.
Yeah, I
and
love
this
it.
one, the death in question is that of the lead character. Al Pacino plays Tony Montana, and he rises to the top in Miami. He's an immigrant, and he, over the 170 odd minutes, he moves his way to a position of power. He has mountains of cocaine. He has guns at his disposal. He barricades himself in. He gets Michelle Pfeiffer. He puts himself in this like kingpin, position. And the way that he comes down, he's got so many iconic lines in the shootout and stuff. And then the way he falls into the pool and stuff at the end after all the shooting, it's just a really memorable scene, I think. And
It's
Lloyd,
almost like Macbeth, where the kingdom is imploding, and he really believes he's invincible as long as he doesn't fight a man of a woman born. And then he fights, I think, Malcolm or Macduff, who's actually untimely ripped from the body. So he wasn't actually born from a woman; he was actually ripped out of. So that was the riddle that he discovered. But like Macbeth makes his last stand, and eventually he dies. It's very similar to Tony Montana,
Scarface.
making his last stand on the thing, and he takes so many bullets, and he keeps, I could take all your bullet, I could take all your bullet, and then the guy comes up behind him and shoots him with a sawn off. Oh my god.
As well, his accent. There's something really intoxicating about
Oh, fantastic.
the way that Al Pacino plays this character, and I think, it's one of those films that everybody should watch at some point, even though it's a long film.
It's very long, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's such a good conclusion, I think, and I really enjoyed it. And as I said, these are death scenes in films that really stayed with us.
How good was cool was that gun he had as well with the rocket launcher? I think Schwarzenegger, he was featured in Predator. Schwarzenegger, that was his main weapon that he had. And in this film, he loads it up and he takes out several guys before he goes down. It's a cool death.
Yeah. Well, the other really iconic scene in Scarface that very nearly was Tony Montana's death scene is where he's chained up in the shower and the guy has a chainsaw.
Oh, that was brutal. You don't actually see anything, funny enough.
Yeah, that's another really well done scene. But I've noticed a few of these are like off camera deaths, I suppose. So maybe that's sort of what seems to stick with me now that we look at it. But the next one, Lloyd, yours, you've got Jaws.
Jaws. I think this is one of the best. I think it's my favorite Spielberg film. I think Spielberg, if you want to study all of his best aspects, best elements, it's definitely Jaws for me. And there's this shark hunter, and I can't believe I forgot his name. It's played by
This Quint.
Oh, yes, it's played by Robert Shaw. Yes, you're right. And he's built up as this shark hunter to take down this, everyone knows Jaws, this monster shark that's just eating up everyone. And he says, I'm a shark hunter, and he gives this amazing monologue, and it's probably one of the best monologues in all of movies, about how, I think there were the guys who were delivering the nuclear bomb, like setting up markers or something, and they were left pretty much in the ocean. Like, it's gone down as legend. They were left out in the Pacific Ocean, and a lot of the soldiers, like, they didn't have an escape route or they didn't have a rescue ship or anything. They were just left to fend for themselves, and they had to fight off the sharks. I think that's actually a true story. And he delivers this monologue about the doll's eyes, and all the rest of it. And then he dies fighting Jaws. And the way... and I caught this on TV recently, and it reminded me how great this movie was. And I was just watching it, and I was actually watching with a friend, and we were both... our jaws were just dropping. Like... I don't know anything about...
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Where the ship is sort of like leaning towards Jaws, like it's off. I don't know how to describe it. Jaws is biting the ship, and it's like collapsing towards him, and he's sliding down the ship, and he's trying his best not to slide into Jaws, but he's like falling down towards him, and there's no music there. It's just him grunting and almost like squealing, like trying to desperately to fend for his life. And it's how animalistic this scene is. Like he's like, I can't do the sound, but he's just like, you know. And he falls eventually into the shark's mouth, and the shark is biting his stomach. Like totally eating him, and blood is shooting out of his mouth, and he's in incredible pain. Robert Shaw did an amazing job of that, and eventually the shark pulls him into the deep blue, and you really get a sense of, wow, there's no messing around. This is really, really horrific, this beast that's out there. And it's one of the best movies I think ever made, Jaws. It's really remarkable. But that death, it is brutal. Just absolutely brutal. And what's worse, he's the shark hunter, he's the expert. I know it's a common formula, the expert always dies, like in Jurassic Park and so forth, but oh my gosh, what a death.
Who's the expert in Jurassic Park that dies? Because Jeff Goldblum lives and...
the English guy, the hunter. He goes, hang on, they're hunting us, and then he goes, clever girl, and he tries to shoot. Yes. Yeah, that was
testing
cool.
the fence for weaknesses.
Yeah,
a little bit of an honourable mention. I think the guy who dies on the toilet in Jurassic Park, that
was brutal.
When you gotta go, and he just runs out there.
And the shark just bites it off.
That's not the shark, the T-Rex.
Oh, T-Rex. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's just a very memorable. Kind of swings him around. So. Very full on. You do not want to go that way.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Check out our podcast at www.podmeifyoucan.com.